Do you want to tell us about the first beer that we got here?
Is he ready?
I think he's ready.
Are you filming? Now you tell me.
That was so natural.
Okay, so
right?
the first beer. So the first beer we're going to try is Headstock. And Nickel Brook started as a homebrew store in 1992. And we decided to start making our own worts in the midst of building a brewery. Beer war started with 24 for 24 because of Lakeport. And, you know, we were struggling, things weren't going well. And, you know, the first claim to fame was a gluten-free beer. Second one was our green apple Pilsner. But then what happened in the community, or the craft community and the brewing community and the brewers community, we kind of got mocked and critiqued that we were making these two beers that a lot of brewers didn't think were real beers. So we decided to put out an IPA, and Headstock was one of our first big beers that we launched. It took a gold medal at the US Beer Open about 8-9 years ago, and Headstock is now our #1 beer. So it is a West Coast IPA. It's 7% alcohol, 80 IBU, so it's big, lots of big hops. It's got lots of aroma, very juicy. Lots of flavor. And that was the first beer that put us on the map as a craft brewery. So we're very fortunate at Nickel Brook that, you know, we're dominant players in the hop world with IPAs. We're dominant in the sour world. This Burlington facility is all sour, which we're going to try in a bitter sour beer. And then we also do have a large barrel program. So we're very well respected in 3 areas of the brewing world. 1 is hoppy beers, 2 is sour beers, and 3 is barrel-aged beers, which is very unique to have, you know, that kind of strength in so many categories.
So you guys started in I think officially opened in 2005, right?
2004 is when we opened.
2004?
We started launching our beers in the LCBO in 2005, and we started in 1992 as Better Bitters Brewing Company.
So long ago, it's crazy. Facebook
Crazy, I'm getting
2004.
old, you know, they call me a pioneer already, you know, I'm 50 years old and they call me a pioneer, so I don't know what's gonna happen when I'm 80, I think I'll be, I don't know, a skeleton, I don't know.
So you guys have been a leader in artisanal brewing and craft beer. When you look from 2005 to now, how much have you seen the craft beer market grow and evolve?
Crazy. We were about the 20th brewery in the province of Ontario. I couldn't give this stuff away. My brother and I founded Nickel Brook, and we would get mentally abused on a daily basis. I'd have beer thrown back at me, I'd be kicked out of bars, you know, making beer all day, selling it, you know, all afternoon and night, and driving back going, what the frig did I get myself into? It was bad. I even had friends that, you know, wouldn't drink my beer and they thought I was crazy. And I had friends coming up to me going, do you realize you're competing against the world? Do you realize you compete against the world? Have you been in the liquor store lately? You see all the beers that are there? There's beers from all over the world. You're nuts, right? And, you know, I thought they were right for a very long time. The brewery never showed a profit for over 8 years. And, you know, a couple of years ago, we were struggling again. You go through these waves and roller coaster rides, and we're in a good place now. We're strong. We're 6th or 7th in craft, depending, you know, what channel you look at. You know, there's beer store, liquor store, grocery, they're all kind of different. Beer going into convenience is going to be very interesting, kind of scary. People don't realize there's, you know, 9,000 convenience stores. That can get pretty nasty quick. This next beer we're going to try, we launched, if you went into the liquor store 2 Christmas ago, we're very fortunate. LCBO calls in their top 10 craft breweries and basically listens to them. Years ago, I'd go in begging for more business. Now they call the top 10 in and go, hey man, what do you want to do? So I came up with this idea to do what was called a mystery pack, about having 4 beers in a box, and it was going to be a big black letter A, B, C, and D, and then we had a voting card online or mail it in, and the winner was going to be launched, you know, summer of 18. And the winner was Wicked Awesome. So it's the new trend, the New England IPAs. Again, you know, they're a little bit more hazier, a little bit more juicier. Great beer. It's now our #2 beer. It's in 1 year has really come up right behind Headstock. I was looking at numbers today, and it is not far behind Headstock. So again, it's a great IPA, doing extremely well in all channels. a little bit more juicier. Still like it's almost 7% alcohol. It's up in IBUs as well, but it's a little bit more hazy. That's the big trend right now.
It is really cool to see you guys jump to like different styles like this, but it's not like you're just jumping into one and then going back to something else. It seems like very systematic and very thought out.
Oh, you're evolving
planned,
it,
right?
You're evolving it.
And that's like a good way to honor each style, to be true to it, right?
So, you look at our hop series, we're constantly, building, enhancing it. Our sours, we're constantly doing that. Our barrel, we're constantly doing that. Like Glory Cuvée was aged for a year, and now we launched Glory in Gold, and it's been aged for 2 years, and we're blending barrels that are a year old, 2 years, and even older than 2 years to create a new beer. And the problem with Cuvée was it's a style, and a lot of people don't know what a Cuvée is, and so we launched Glory in Gold about a month ago, and it's doing really well.
I want to get back to Nickel Brook, like the origins of it. Like being someone that works in a chemistry lab right now, I have a chemistry background, I've studied chemistry. It's cool to see a brewery embrace like the science behind brewing. How did that become the focus? Like, is there a story there?
So people don't realize, we rebranded years ago. Our logo before was, a diamond, Nickel Brook lager, Nickel Brook organic lager, Nickel Brook gluten-free. And we interviewed with several marketing companies, and they spoke to me and my brother and our brewers and stuff, and they just loved the approach we took to making beer. And one of them said that he felt that we take a very science approach to it, because people don't realize there's a lot of chemistry involved. Most brewmasters have a degree in chemistry and biology. So when you really, take all the layers off it, there's a lot of science involved. You're dealing with, the elements of malts, if they roasted or not, the hops and different hops. Like when I tell, you got chocolate malt and coffee malt and Karastan and Citra hops and Simcoe, they all have elements. It's like, different flours and different grains if you're a baker or a cook. And even if you're cooking with herbs, mint, basil, oregano, all have different flavors. And that's what a hop is. And a brewer is a bit of a chef and a chemist all at the same time, right? Because you're adding yeast and you're breaking down, starches to sugar, and then sugar to alcohol, and then you're infusing hops. So it's very much science. And so we flew with it. And the first stick we came out was a miracle of science. But a lot of people, I was constantly being asked, what's the miracle of science? I go, well, beer's very chemistry related, and blah, blah, blah. And it didn't, people weren't digging it as much. So we revisited it a couple of years ago, and we came back with beer down to a science. And it's funny, when we introduced the Atom with the hops in it, it really, really made a difference with the rebrand. And it's funny, my wife and one of our brewmaster's girlfriends at the time, both came up to me when they saw the first version of the rebrand and said, you know what, Atom should have hops in it. So I called the illustrator, the designer, and told him, and he's like, you don't have to put hops in it. And I go, well, I think it's a good idea. And my wife thinks it's a good idea. He goes, no, you don't have to put hops in it. And I said, Bob, are you married?
He's like, my wife said, and you have to.
He goes, no, but I've been married 3 times. And I said, well, Bob, now I know why. Would you put freaking hops in the Atom, please? And it was a big hit. Like, we couldn't give our T-shirts away before, and now we've got, like, look at all the swag we got, right? And they do well. Like, people love it. They're digging it. And then when we built Hamilton, we decided to turn Burlington into a sour facility. We were probably the very first brewery in the province to have a facility that size. We were doing 8,000 hex out of Burlington. And to turn the whole brewery sour was a bit of a, of a stretch, and it was hard at the beginning, but it's coming along fine now. We have 3-4 sour beers and retail that are doing well. And we do true sours, and that's why it's in a can. I mean, in a bottle, not in a can. When you see a sour in a can, it's a kettle sour. That's a true sour. It takes us 4 days to culture the bacteria, the lacto, and to create the lacto. And that bottle is alive, so you couldn't, if I canned that beer, it would look like a football within a week or so. So that beer's in a bottle that is able to hold pressure. So, and there's a lot of fruit in this beer. We make about 2,000 liters of beer, and then we put 1,200 pounds of raspberries in this beer. So when you look at the color, that red is from doing a second fermentation on berries.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. Very tart, not sweet at all. Very sour. A lot of people find it very weird. But a lot of girls that aren't big beer drinkers dig this beer because there's no hops in it. There's no bitterness. It's just tart and sour. So
it's like it's like almost not polar opposite, but it's very different from what we just tried, right?
You got juicy IPAs and now you got tart sours. So, you know, we launched Zap, another sour beer, but it's done as an IPA. We thought, okay, we're respected in the hop world, we're respected in the sour world. Why not launch, you know, a sour IPA?
Yeah.
So Zap came out this summer, and it's probably our 4th performing beer. So it's growing very quickly.
So back in 2016, you guys transformed the original brewery and you created the Funk Lab, had the Funk Lab launch party, right?
Well, no, we actually started doing, well, it was maybe 15, 16. Funk Lab maybe got launched properly in 16, but we started doing that a little bit before then, but it wasn't, say, 100% complete.
Yeah. What's the whole idea behind the Funk Lab series? Like, how would you explain it to someone who's never heard of it before? Or
so the idea was, you know, people, you know, we grew up in an era where, you know, your dad, my dad probably drank the same beer all their lives, if not maybe 1 or 2 beers.
My dad still tells me, he's like, Busch Light is the best beer.
Oh my God, don't talk to me about that. I don't want to meet your dad. No, just kidding. So because of, you know, staying with, you know, creative and bringing energy to anything or any brand, we decided that, you know, having, you know, we do a sour beer once a month, we do a hoppy beer once a month, and it's basically like your playlist, right? You're creating recipes and what's working, what's not, what was hot, what was not, and then it gives you, you know, ammo and energy and ideas to keep going to the different channels that the beer's going into. So we go to LCBO with ideas, we go to grocers with ideas, and then they can pick and choose what they think's, you know, hot or not. But we've got some history because we've made the beer once, and with the tap room now, people are coming here to try it. We get lots of feedback, so it's a test panel.
Right, and it seems like a cool way to just like not only to like branch out and try new things, but it's probably like really beneficial for your brewers to like continually learn and develop new skills.
It'd be like if I'm a restaurant, and okay, let's face it, at the end of the day, you probably make a lot more money on burgers and fries. But, you know, if you told your chef all you're going to do is do gourmet burgers and very good fries, how long are you going to keep a creative guy, right? So it brings creativity and energy to all your staff. Like, you know, your marketing team's coming up with ideas and looks and themes and names, and then your brewing team is coming up with recipes, and we all contribute. Like, wicked awesome. Our logistics manager came up with the name. Headstock, I came up with the name. You know, like it's cool having all these beers. Like, you know, we just launched another hoppy beer, Thrashin' Passion, right? You know, so it's very cool, and it always brings a lot. It gets tiresome sometimes because it's almost some days you feel like you're running out of names.
Yeah.
But we always seem to come up with another
one. It
one.
keeps the creative lines firing, right?
The blood, it keeps the juices going, the blood going, and your staff, right? Creative and always thinking and throwing ideas at you, and, you know, keeps everybody motivated. And
I always wonder, like, you know, we talked about updating the brewery and renovating the brewery and you know, transforming it and having these new series. Does that type of change give you like an extra bit of motivation or passion for Nickel Brook? Not that it like lessened at any point, but I would imagine being in a new
for
space.
sure. Like, it keeps, you know, not that Headstock, Naughty Cause are getting old, but they're your staples.
Yeah.
Right? And going back to a restaurant, like, you know, a restaurant might be famous for a certain dish, but, you know, it's cool to have your daily specials, your weekly specials, right? You know, it just keeps energy. You're sourcing new ingredients, you're talking to farmers, fruit growers, you know, hop growers. So work can get dull fast, right? And we've been at it now 15, 16 years, and there are very few dull days, right?
Do you ever think, like, I wondered this too beforehand, and I guess we kind of got sidetracked when I was asking you about, like, thinking about the way things were when you first started, but do you ever look back now and consider, like, how much you've inspired other craft brewers to get started, or, like, how much you've contributed to growing the craft beer community?
So it's pretty cool. Like, I don't feel it myself, and I don't think that way. It's not, like, we do a lot of charity work. I'm not doing it to get a pat on the back.
Right.
I'm doing it because it feels good. And, your sister dies of leukemia, you help out Ronald McDonald House and cancer groups and stuff, and your parents have heart attacks and you help heart and stroke, right? But when you started, when I started this gig, I never thought that. But it's true, because I golfed a couple of months ago at the Brewers golf tournament, and I golfed with a couple of very small young brewers, that they owned, brew pubs mainly in the area. And I didn't realize what an inspiration I was to these guys. Like, they were taking pictures of me and emailing their staff and hugging in, almost kissing me, right? I'm like, okay, calm down. I'm not a freaking
just don't tell anyone I shot.
I'm not a brain surgeon here. I'm just a brewer. But it's true. We had a kid in here last summer that was looking at doing something up north, and he was shocked to find me here and talk to me and stuff. And I give him the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
I beat up on a kid almost like mentally, 2 years ago. He wanted to open up a brewery in the Hamilton area, and I told him the pros and cons, and there were more cons than pros. And
he left crying.
He almost left crying. Like, he said to me 2-3 times, like, why are you talking to me like this? Because I wanted him to have a reality check. Just married, had young kids, had a great job, 6-figure job in the steel industry. And I said, buddy, do you realize you're not going to see your kids, you're not going to see your wife, you're not going to have any money, you got to have money in the bank, no one's going to float you any credit, you got to buy kegs, you got to buy glassware, coasters, posters, it's not pretty. Mm-hmm. Like, my brother and I collateraled our homes, even our dad's home at one point, to keep the brewery alive and afloat. It's a long, tough ride, and even just recently, I've heard of 2-3 breweries that are just at the verge, right? Mm-hmm. You look at even what happened to F&M and Grand River. These guys have been around for a while and they're gone. It's a tough racket, and you got to work hard, and the money's not great for a long time, and you just got to keep inspired and motivated and keep plugging away, and good things happen, people that do good things, right?
We get into this last
so that's the big one, and the warmer the better on that one, because I do talk a lot. So that's Old Kentucky. So you're going to get lots of it's kind of boozy, it is upwards of 12%, but you got chocolate malts and coffee malts, and then you've got the barrel, the bourbon from the barrel. The beer goes in about 9%, and between evaporation and infusing some of the bourbon, it goes up to 12.
Thanks for having us. Cheers.
Thanks for coming. That'll put some hair on your chest, that one.
Yeah, I don't think I need any more, but I probably will.
It's a good beer.
Mm-hmm. It is very smooth.
Well, it's a year old. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sipper, right?
Yeah.
It's a share. You buy a bottle of that, and
I did that exact thing this summer, actually, at the cottage. I brought that up.
You had it in the middle of the summer.
In the middle of the summer. It was at
Crazy
nighttime.
Bugger, yeah.
I had it, I bought it at the store, and I was like, this would be good to share. Because it is a share, right?
It's a share,
It's not something that you just buy for yourself.
When it was in 750 mil, that's one of the reasons why we dropped it to 500. We were finding that people were saying that it was just, if it was in a smaller format, that they would probably, open the bottle themselves.
Yeah.
So we went to 500 to help that. So we created the Atom bottle.
So you guys have like the mainstays, like, Headstock and Wicked Awesome, and like Naughty Neighbor and Cosmic
Naughty's
Effect.
a big, and Cos is big too.
And then I would say like the sours, but like the Uber series, right? Where you just like play on different flavors that way. Stuff. And then this massive barreling program. How long did it take you to build all of those to get it like to this huge inventory? Because it seems like that would take a while to build.
Yeah, so
it's not like you're just jumping in there.
Oh God,
it seems to be like you're doing them really well, and like actually being true to each style.
So barrels, when we started our barrel program, we had 6 barrels. And then second year, we had 36 barrels. And then third year, we had 100 barrels. And fourth year, we had 200 barrels. And now, we're starting to empty them. But, if you would have looked back, about a month and a half ago, we probably had 800 to 1,000 barrels in our program. We've got a couple of hundred, Glory and Gold. We have a couple of hundred Old Kentucky. Glory and Gold, we're aging for 2 years in barrels. Yep. So it takes time because it's costly. Like the first barrel-aged beer we did was Cuvée, and it had 36 barrels, and I had thousands and thousands of dollars sitting in barrels and beer, and I pulled the trigger on that beer. I went to the board, I brought them samples, and they said no, because I was only gonna have 8,000 bottles, and they said I was wasting their time. Had to beg the buyer. Like I called him weekly and emailing him and calling him and emailing him, and finally broke down and gave me the listing, and we sold 4,000 bottles in 4 days. Mm-hmm. That was the start of it. And then we started Old Kentucky, and Old Kentucky's been rated #1 craft beer in Ontario 2 years running. Cafe was rated #1 craft beer in Canada last year. Yeah. So it's kind of cool, and it's progression. Like we started with Bolshevik Bastard, aged in a bourbon barrel, and then put on coffee beans. And next year I'm contemplating, even because you build layers in the beer. You've got a Imperial Stout, you put in a bourbon barrel, gives it another layer of complexity. You put on coffee beans, gives it another layer of complexity, and then maybe add something else to it, right? You could add mint, or you play. You gotta experimental, right? Yeah. That's why we call here our Funk Lab. Like we're launching 24 seasonals a year out of the Funk Lab now, and it brings creativity to the brewer, and it gives us ideas for our next release, right? Because the board's really good with us, and like I said, they come to us for innovation, and when we throw ideas at them, they're more than glad to try it.
Yeah, it seems like you are really invested in being part of the community, right? Like you have events going on with like music and workshops and the craft market.
We also do a lot of stuff within the community. Like, right. We do stuff with Heart and Stroke. We do stuff with the hospital. I don't think there's a day.
Doors Open Burlington, right?
Yeah. I don't think there's a day that we don't give someone at least some beer for something, and a week where we're not sponsoring some little event for some little reason or big reason. Mm-hmm. Then it's important. Like it's great to work, and once you start doing well, it's great to give back. And when I walk around Burlington, I'm at Costco, for God's sakes. John, how's it going? It's like you should run for mayor sometime. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. It's a great feeling because not everybody drinks beer, but a lot of people know us just from the work we do. We're active with Heart and Stroke. We're active with the hospice. We're active with our Joseph Brant Memorial Hospital. We're always doing stuff. There's we donated money to the hospice before they cracked ground. There's a room in our honor at our hospital. There's a room in our honor at MAC. So it's a good feeling to give back and help.
And like the location that you guys have here in Burlington is interesting, because you're like a bridge between two like major craft beer markets in like Hamilton and obviously Toronto, right?
Yeah.
But do you still feel that like sense of community between Nickel Brook and other breweries, despite the fact you're not next door?
Oh yeah, there's us and them. Like we're very close. Like just 2 weeks ago, the top 8 breweries in the province met. We had a meeting, and we basically vented. It was roundtable discussion. We shot the shit about stuff, and we picked 4 topics that were of interest to all 8 breweries, and now we're putting together data from these 4 topics to help each other. Mm-hmm. What are you paying for your malts? What are you paying for your CO2 cans? What are you doing to sterilize? And like we all gave each other ideas, right? Peter Flying Monkey gave me an idea. I gave an idea the boys at Steam Whistle. There's when you get to that top 10, the 10 of us make as much beer as another 200. It's sad. It's the same way in the States. Like, there's 7,000 breweries in the United States, and 6,000 of them produce under 5,000 hectoliters of beer a year. A couple of hundred of them probably produce most of the beer. Right. And the same thing's happening in Ontario. And there's only so much they can do as an individual, and we're all working hard to improve our bottom lines, make better beer and stuff. And when you can come to a table and just openly talk about stuff, what do you pay your sales reps? What do you pay for your caustic? What do you pay for your barley? Where you're getting your cans? So now we're looking at maybe we should buy our can lids together. We can't buy our cans together because of the art, but maybe. But a lid's a lid. So if I can drop the price of a lid by a penny, doesn't sound a lot, but when I'm buying millions and millions of lids, and Steam Whistle's buying zillions of lids, you know, it adds up, and a penny's a penny. And it's, you know, if I can make another you know, quarter on every case of beer I sell, it helps, right?
Yeah.
And working as a group, we can do that, right?
Cool. Thanks so much for having us. Really
Thanks for
appreciate
coming.
it. That was awesome.
Wicked
Perfect.
awesome.
Wicked
There's a beer
awesome.
named that.